So BTU Metals has been around for a number of years now, but its primary focus is a project in Red Lake. And when Great Bear Resources, who made what I consider to be one of Canada's great gold discoveries in about 2018, and they've been working through that, the company, before I was involved, started acquiring land, and they've accumulated almost 200 square kilometers, so a very extensive property in an area in northern Ontario that really is outside of the Red Lake Gold Camp, which has production and reserves of about 30 million ounces. But this area to the southeast of Red Lake had really been kind of neglected, partly because the geology was misunderstood and partly because it was all overburden cover. So there was very little geological information to work with. So the company started acquiring this large land position. Great Bear's been a great Canadian success story. It's now trading at about, I haven't checked the price lately, but probably around $15 or $16. Got a market cap of something in the range of $800 million. And they're in the middle of doing a huge drill program with 6 machines and continue to outline what appears to be a large open pit, high grade gold deposit right in the Canadian Shield, right next to excellent infrastructure. So as much as we're adjacent to them, we're also doing what we consider to be a really good job of putting together enough information so we understand the geology in order to go make the next great gold discovery.
Right. Okay. I can, having looked at your presentation and the various maps and the way that you encroach onto, you butt right up to Great Bear's property and you kind of wrapped around it slightly. I can see why you'd want to make those parallels, but you won't be the first company that's come on here and talked about closeology, nearology in the head frame, etc. You're a 16 million market cap company at 16 cents. You've been at it a while. Why is now the time for people to be looking at your story?
When we started working on the project, we had very little in the way of a geological database and very little in the way of a geophysical or geochemical database. So part of what our methodology has been is to actually go in and create all of these databases so that we actually have a way of honing in or vectoring in on really good sound targets. And this is keep in mind, this is a 200 square kilometer area with only a handful of outcrops and very little in the way of historic geological information. So part of what we've been doing is layering in better geochemistry, using till sampling as one of the techniques, which has really been developed over the last 20 or 30 years. And we used it to find a gold deposit in Timmins. The Rainy River gold deposit was found using that. Casa Berardi in northern Quebec was found using that. So and we use it for Bell Creek in Timmins.
What is it?
So till sampling is when the glaciers rode across the Archean bedrock, it ground up bits and pieces of the bedrock, and trained in that are little specks of gold if there was gold in the bedrock. So we then so it gives you a larger area to go and focus on. So if you can go and find some gold grains, and there's a whole science behind analyzing the gold grains to see whether or not they're pristine or modified or rounded, that will help indicate how far they've traveled. And so by finding pristine gold grains, you're not far from the source. So that's one of the things that we've been doing. We also flew a drone airborne survey. We've done state-of-the-art airborne geophysics in order to define a base metal target that we were working on. We've done ground geophysics. We do a lot of induced polarization surveys. So if you think of the power that we put into the ground, so we put electrodes in the ground and we charge the ground up, and then we measure how long it takes for that charge to disappear from the ground. So the earth can act like capacitors, and they can hold that charge for a while. So if you have minerals like pyrite, arsenopyrite, base metal minerals, they'll hold the charge longer. And so you'll end up with a map. So you can actually map out areas that have potential to have more sulfide mineralization with them. And that is often where you'll find the gold mineralization as well. So there's a whole toolbox that we've been using to try to hone in on these targets, but it takes time. It takes a couple of years just to get all the survey data and then go back and kind of refocus again on certain areas that you like the results of. We're not doing this the way a major company would do it and walk in and just blanket survey the entire 200 square kilometers. We'd be broke in a nanosecond. So what we've been doing is using the historical data that's available, using these various techniques, and we use the lower cost ones to do more blanket surveys and then hone in with the more expensive surveys before we go and actually drill the holes.
Okay, so it's really early stage. You're making comparisons to an $800-900 million company. You're really early stage. You've got, how much money have you got in the bank?
We've got about 1.3 million at this point in time.
Right, and that's going to last you how long?
Well, our burn rate, our corporate burn rate is less than 40,000 a month. So we're fine on that side. We've got some flow through money that will be spent by the end of the year. There's probably about $500,000 or so that will be spent by the end of the year or into early part of next year if we have to get a COVID extension. So far, COVID has not actually stopped any work up there. It's made it a little bit more expensive and slowed us down a little bit, but it's not made any major impact. So far, everything's good. And it looks like Canada's actually coming at the other side of that at this point.
Right. So I guess what I'm trying to understand, and maybe it might be worth you explaining, is what's the plan here? Because we're seeing lots of Canadian companies put out big headlines, raise lots of money, and really get after some of these properties out there. And it's going well. I mean, the gold environment is good. What's your approach going to be? Are you after headlines? Are you looking to irritate your neighbors so that they take you out? Are you looking to develop this yourself? And what's your approach?
Well, I don't think we're there to irritate our neighbors, and we like to think that we've got a pretty good working relationship with our neighbors. They are good people. They're really good explorers, and we have a lot of respect for them, and we get along quite well. In fact, our core shacks almost touch each other. There's literally a walkway between their core shack and our core shack. So it's no, we have a good relationship with them. We think they've done a very, very good job, and they're spending. They've got about 70 million in cash right now, and an $800 million market cap. And I think they're going to be, they're well on their way to outlining something on the order of 10 million ounces of gold in that, that's fairly near surface and probably open pittable. And certainly there's going to be some depth extent to that mineralization as well. The main trend where they've got this brand new discovery is called the LP fault structure, which it sounds like something that you would be able to walk along and actually define, but it's more of an area of mineralization as opposed to a discrete fault. And so we're not sure where that extends and whether or not it actually cuts through the northeast corner of our property or not. And we've done a little bit of drilling in that area, but not a lot. We've got some good looking core in for analysis right now. And that's one of the reasons I think maybe people should be interested in BTUs. If we do come out with a headline hole, this is a classic 10-bagger, if that's what you want to use as the kind of analogy, that a share price that could go from 15 cents to $1.50 in no time. I was involved in the very early days of the Hemlo discoveries in Northern Ontario, which everybody in Canada is aware of, but maybe other people aren't. And again, that was an area right on the Trans-Canada Highway where people didn't understand the geology and hadn't spent enough time and effort on. And we went in there, and between ourselves and a couple of other companies, we outlined 3 mines that mine the same deposit. And if I were to think that, in that case, there were 3 mines on the same deposit, in most gold camps, there are several mines, and I don't think there's any that I can think of in Canada where one company has all of the gold on their property. So I think there's really good potential that we could find something on our ground. Okay, so
you're talking about that property just on the northeast tip, which lies along that same, I know it's not a fault, but it's an area that you're talking about that Great Bear has. That's one tiny aspect of what you've got. I mean, how are you allocating 1.3 million bucks or $500,000 of that 1.3 million bucks between now and the end of the year to get the market excited to be looking at you? I mean, so you talked about some drilling. I mean, how much drilling are we talking about?
We've got about 8 holes in the lab right now, and a couple of them look really good. We've told the market about that. We think that structure is going to require additional drilling. We've got new targets that we've outlined. As I said, we're doing this layering where we're getting geophysical information as well as geological information and the till sampling, and that's pointing us to certain targets away from that northeast corner as well. So there's this northeast to southwest trending fault structure or strong deformation zone all the way across our ground. And so we've been doing IP geophysics as well as till sampling to try to define targets further to the southwest as well. And so we've invested that money last year and early this year into getting those targets defined. And in the next month or so, we'll start another drill program, and we'll actually be going in and drilling short holes to test a number of different targets.
So how many holes, how deep
Typically we're drilling about 150-meter holes. They don't have to be terribly deep. We don't. These geophysical targets actually give us a pretty precise location as to where we're going to collar the hole and where we expect to hit the target zone. So we can get in there with some fairly short holes, and in some cases they're only going to be 100 meters. But we'll get in there with probably another dozen holes between now and sometime early mid-fall.
So, and you talked about 2 of the 8 holes looking quite good. I mean, is that going to be enough to get the market interested, your shareholders to be happy, for you to be able to raise more money, which you're going to need to do? I mean, it's tough. Down this end, it's really tough, right? Not many of the companies that down at this end of the market make it. So, there's lots of ways that you guys have got to play this. So again, how do you? What happens if these 2 holes aren't good enough to excite the market? You've got 8 holes. People go, okay, great. Now what? How do you play it?
And that's always the story with these really junior companies. Is you're always kind of flying by the seat of your pants, trying to come up with enough good news to have investors want to give you more money to do more work. And so that's our job. And I think you need a strong management team. You need good operators. You need to try to find a way to have a business plan that, I'm not saying undercuts anybody else, but gets away from the way major companies explore. And in fact, that's why you'll see a lot of the major companies end up doing deals with juniors, is the juniors are actually much more cost efficient when it comes to doing exploration. We know how to do things cheaper than major companies. So yeah, we don't have a ton of money, but we have enough money to go in there and actually carry out a really solid business plan over the next, call it 9 months, I would say. I think we could get to Christmas and we could be maybe not drilling continuously, but almost continuously evaluating targets.
Okay. So let's talk about the team actually here, because some of this is going to be based on people's belief in you as a team and what you've done before. So can you maybe run through, because I think we were going to be speaking with Paul today as well. Maybe kick off with yourself and then run through the people who are actually in the company doing things as opposed to just named individuals.
Well, I can tell you a little bit about the board. So we've got Mike England, who's a longtime junior mining guy out of Vancouver. We've got Margot Naughty on the board, who used to be with TD here in Canada and ran the resource portfolio for them. And then we've got Vic on the board as well. Vic has been a long-term mining guy. He was actually part of the founding group for Yamana and also for Osisko. He was the chair of Osisko at one time. So, I mean, good, strong people on the board. And Paul, the CEO, has been around the resource industry directly and indirectly for a significant period of time as well. And he's more of a deal guy, but he's really done a good job of shareholder communications and has really learned a lot.
But these are all good names. And again, it's like all juniors, like you say, sometimes you fly by the seat of the pants, and that's just the name of the game, right? It's high risk, high return, and nothing wrong with that. But, the way that you guys make decisions about the best path forward is really important. So what are they asking of you to be able to go and do whatever it is that they think they're good at? Paul he's a deal guy. That's what what have you got to deliver to him, say, to allow him to go and either raise more money or get some kind of farm in or strategic partner or however he sees this thing going forward?
Well, my background, I've been around for about 40 years now. I'm from Northern Ontario originally. And actually my grandfather did prospecting when he came north as a settler. So, I mean, I guess I come by it fairly honestly. But when I graduated, I worked for, as you and I were talking a little bit earlier, one of the first things I did was went off to the Sudan and worked for a company looking for asbestos. I mean, I've looked for diamonds, we've looked for, it's clearly gold, and I've traveled around the world a lot, like a lot of exploration guys, but been very successful at it. I was involved in Hemlo and 2 of the mines there. We found Bell Creek in 1978 with a guy that I still stay in touch with, Bob Middleton, who I have a lot of respect for. We created a company called Canadian Royalties in 1999, I guess it was. And we went up to an area where nobody was really looking for nickel, copper, platinum, palladium. But it was about the first time that when palladium had its first run, it went up to $1,000. And we took on a huge land position. And, we went in there and we outlined 8 different nickel deposits over a period of about 5 years. So, it's about going in and trying to find opportunities where other people either missed them or weren't funded or just didn't understand the geology. So I think that's what I bring to the table, and as well as a lot of contacts. And so we've got strong contacts, whether it's geophysical contractors or drilling contractors. And I know what we're doing when it comes time to getting those contracts in place, making people perform, and bringing back information that can then be put together, as I was saying, so that we can vector in on the best targets without spending a ton of money.
Right. So you want to do things honestly. You want to do things the right way. And
isn't that the only one?
Apparently not. Apparently not. I don't need to talk to you about that. I don't need to talk to you about it because I'm intrigued by this, because you've been at this 40 years, okay, man and boy. Do you think the way that the markets operates has changed? Have you had to adapt the way that you get these sorts of things off the ground compared to, okay, you talked about 1978, it's been...
Yeah, no, the industry's changed significantly. I don't think the premises have changed a lot. I mean, and even if you go back to the geological databases, I tell people the story, and it's actually it's something that you have to keep in mind. And I don't think younger people really have a good feel for it. But if you go back and you look at, I can just pick one example. So if you go to Timmins, an area where it's the largest the deepest base metal mine in the world is located, and numerous gold mines. I mean, there's probably 50 or 75 gold mines there. But if you take an era and you go back through the geological database, call it from 1965, 64, 65, 66, and you look at a geological drill log, everything that was a gray rock or a beige rock was called a rhyolite, because the only way budgets got money was by having rhyolite, because everybody was looking for the next Kidd Creek, which was the large base metal mine. So every gray rock or brown rock became a dacite or a rhyolite. Wherein, in fact, if you read the details of the drill log, they'll describe things, and you can clearly see that these were altered ultramafic rocks because they were carbonate altered, they were gray to beige, but it was either they didn't know what they were doing, or they were just trying to get the next budget money for the next drill hole. So I think, when you're going through looking at areas, these are all kinds of tricks within the trade that you have to read between the lines and all of the old geological databases.
Yeah, I think we see a lot of that today. Relabeling of of rock still happens today. So so it happened before, it happened again, and I guess it's from a position of slight desperation. You need the next amount of money to come through to be able to continue to do the work. Human nature, I suspect. But in your case, given we've established you're doing things honestly, coming back to the question, which is, what does your board need you to deliver to make their jobs easier to go and raise the money that they need to move this project forward? Or what are the options that they've laid out to you available should the drilling not go well? Let's look at both those cases.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a really good question. I think we're going to get that success story at some point along the way. We have come up with scattered assays on surface. We've come up with lots of gold grains and till sampling. We're going to go back and do some additional till sampling this year. I think that's a really good way to continue to generate interest in the project. All of our property payments are I'm just thinking, all but the brand new project that we took on, which is actually further to the southeast. All of the property payments are made, the share payments are issued. So we're in good standing that way. Our property position is in good standing for several years now. We're not under any pressure to perform on that side. And even the new land that we took on further to the southeast this year was primarily based on the base metal potential of that property. We've outlined a really good target. We didn't know it was there when we took the project on. We thought there was an indication of another target to the east of what we call the TNT area, which is really a copper silver mineralized area. And so when we got out there and did some additional geophysics, the one target we were interested in didn't turn out to be great. It's there, and we'll probably drill it at some point, but we found a really good one further to the east. And so we're looking at the logistics of getting in to drill that one. One drill hole into something like that, if that turned out to be a base metal zone of mineralization with good grades, would change this company dramatically. And it would be the thing that would drive the stock price from 15 cents to $1.50 kind of thing. It is the real blue sky project. We'll get to that one. We've done all the geophysics. We know that it, from a geological point of view, we think that that's a VMS type setting. And so if you're looking at VMS style footwall alteration, you get copper and mineralization in the footwall, but where you're really looking for the stratabound larger sulfide deposits would be what we call up stratigraphy from there. And that's exactly where this new target is to the east, which would be up stratigraphy. So it's a really tantalizing target. We're the logistics to get to it are a little bit tricky just because of the water. But other than that, if we can't get to it sometime in the next 3 or 4 months, we'll get to it in the winter.
Okay.
But that's a great looking target.
It's interesting. You kind of got a base metals component, you've got the gold component, but the gold component's the thing that you set out to deliver, and it's what Great Bear, your neighbor, is doing. And I guess I can see the traction of why you set out to do that. Do you think that there's a lot of gold companies out there for investors to look at? There's a lot going on at the moment. Do you think you'd be better focused on the base metals? Does that strike you as a better way to spend your capital?
There are a couple of aspects to that. So certainly, I think good base metal projects command a significant value in this kind of a market. The good thing about base metal projects, if they're VMS style mineralization, they show up as good geophysical targets. So they're pretty confined, they're discrete, and we can actually go and drill that, and it either is going to be there or it isn't going to be there. And so that aspect is good. The logistics on that one are a little bit tricky. So we will get to that. Our primary focus, however, is on gold mineralization in this developing area of the Red Lake Gold Camp. And I'd be really surprised if Great Bear have all of the gold on their ground. I'm convinced there's going to be gold on our ground. We've seen the really good, strong alteration. We've seen pyrite, arsenopyrite, quartz carbonate veining, felsic intrusions, good sericite, schist, lots of deformation, and lots of tourmaline as well. So we think there's a really good environment there. But finding these deposits under significant overburden is not straightforward. It's one of the reasons that the gold price is going up, and it does cost a bit more because you have to do more drilling and more sophisticated geophysics. The days of boot and hammer prospecting are pretty much over in Canada, certainly.
And talk about some of these logistical issues, because you mentioned obviously with the base metals, and earlier you talked about you have to maybe come back to it in winter because of the water component. I mean, what are the issues that you have been facing?
You know what? To be quite honest, this project straddles the highway to Red Lake, so the logistics are not really a big problem. We can drive all the way around the property. There's a ring road that goes all the way kind of down around the property. There's a highway. There's a gas line that goes into Red Lake. There are power lines on the property. So from a logistics point of view, this is about as good as it gets. And that does help us on the exploration front as well. It keeps our costs down. So if you're looking at doing diamond drilling, call it in the Arctic or somewhere where it's remote in Canada, you're probably looking at the better part of $1,000 a meter to drill. Whereas where we're drilling, we're probably on the order of $150 a meter. And depending on the volume and depth and whatnot, that can vary a bit, but very, very manageable drilling costs.
Oh, right. So I read somewhere that you'd mentioned something about some logistical issues that you had to face over the winter.
Well, there's a bit of it. I mean, you can have local logistical issues. So we had one creek. We think there's a big fault structure that comes down off the Great Bear ground down the Dixie Creek Valley. So the Dixie Creek Valley, it's not a big issue, but it is a bit of a logistical issue working around wetlands with drilling equipment. And so you need the ground frozen to get into those kind of sensitive areas. So that was the only logistical issue there. And then the base metal target that we've got out under Packwash Lake is going to be a bit of a challenge. We either have to figure out how to work off an island, or we have to wait until freeze up next year, and then we'll build an ice road and we'll drill off the ice. Okay,
fantastic. So what I'm hearing from you is you've got enough money to do more drilling. We're certainly through Christmas. We're waiting for these 8 drill result assays to come back imminently. So when did you say they would be back?
I think they should be coming back now. I mean, one of the things that's happened, and I don't think it's just a Canadian issue, but certainly the labs in Canada are backed up significantly. Typically when we go through one of these boom or busy periods in the junior mining industry, one of the first things that happens is the labs get backed up, and then the labs expand, and then right near the end of the cycle, the labs have all kinds of capacity, and then the whole thing crashes. There's been quite a consolidation in the labs, and so there are very few lab companies left, and they're managing their business pretty well, and they're keeping things pretty tight. They're not expanding, and so the wait times are on the order of 8 weeks, 10 weeks sometimes now, and so it's a bit of an issue.
Okay, and do you obviously you don't want to raise money anytime soon. You've got enough for a drill program, but you don't want to raise any money anytime soon because 16 million market cap, you're just not there. They'd be too dilutory for you. But you're going to have to run it down quite close to the wire as a result, and hope that some of these drill results do have an effect on the market, as you say, do have a hockey stick type of effect if you can show that you are on or somewhere near Great Bear's fault. That's kind of nerve-wracking, isn't it?
That's the industry we live in, and we will deal with it. I mean, as we get into the fall, we'll be drilling, we'll have activity, we'll have more asset results, we'll have more to add to the story. And then we'll get into flow-through season. If we do get an opportunity to raise some money at a premium, then we'll certainly do that. And then that'll carry us into the next year. But lots of work still to do for sure.
Okay, brilliant. Well, look, Bruce, thanks for joining us today. Appreciate you stepping in for Paul. Stay in touch. Let us know how you get on. Exciting times for you. Hope the drill results come through the way you hope.
Yeah, and this is how the junior mining industry works. And boy, if we do make a discovery, it's the really exciting times. I mean, I was involved in Hemlo when 10-cent shares went to $100 and Goliath and Golden Scepter. So I mean, those are the kinds of things that keep me actually active and interested in what we're doing. And it's all about trying to find an opportunity and see it develop.